Many mainstream Christians claim to celebrate the Pentecost, but if you ask most people to explain it, you'd probably get a mix of
something about the Holy Spirit,
or
is that the fire one?
Or
wasn't that an Old Testament thing?
Short answer, yes. This is the 4th episode in our series on God's Holy Day plan. Last time we talked about how to live righteously now that we've been freed from sin with the days of unleavened bread. Today, we're going to talk about how God created the church and how keeping Pentecost every year keeps us connected to that incredible beginning. Pentecost shows up in the Old Testament as the Feast of Weeks. During the days of unleavened bread, you count from the Sunday that falls in between those days 50 days, hence the name Pentecost, which literally means 50th, or Shavuot in Hebrew, meaning weeks. This was a harvest festival. People would bring the first fruits of their wheat harvest and offer them to God. So right from the beginning, Pentecost is about provision, gratitude, and the beginning of a greater harvest to come. Now fast forward to the New Testament, and Pentecost isn't just a festival about crops and farming. Something huge happens that completely changes how we should understand it. In Acts 2, the disciples are gathered together on the day of Pentecost, and then a sound like a rushing wind, tongues like fire resting on their heads. They begin speaking in different languages, and a crowd gathers. People from all over the world hearing the message about Jesus in their own language. Peter stands up and preaches, and by the end of the day, about 3,000 people respond to this truth. This is the moment often described as the beginning of the New Testament church. But more than that, it's the moment where the Holy Spirit is poured out in a new and powerful way. Pentecost has always been about firstfruits. And in Acts 2, we see the firstfruits of something much bigger. A growing, global family of people being drawn to God. Not just one nation, not just one language, but everyone. And this is a big deal from a biblical perspective. You see, thousands of years before this moment, people attempted to flip the script on God and take control of the relationship. They built a tower up to the sky, and it's clear that this was a presumptuous affront to God. He responds by confusing the language of the people and scattering them across the face of the earth, effectively pulling a plug on the tower project. But at Pentecost, God shows that He is ready to approach people in a new and intimate way on His terms. A reversal happens. Instead of nations being divided by languages and scattered, nations of different languages can now hear one unified message, inviting them to draw near to God. There are also some really interesting parallels people have noticed between this moment and events like God revealing Himself at Mount Sinai. Things like fire on the mountain at Sinai and on the heads of the believers during Pentecost, the presence of God as He gives a gift, and a defining moment for His people. At Sinai, 3,000 lives are lost. At Pentecost, 3,000 lives are saved through their acceptance of the gospel message. Now, the exact timing and details of how those connections line up are debated, but at the very least, the themes are hard to miss. God making His presence known. God forming a people, not just through a few individuals every once in a great while like we see in the Old Testament, but through an entire community called His church. Pentecost reminds us that God is still gathering a people. God is still at work, and the harvest isn't finished. It's about asking, am I part of what God is growing? Am I part of what He's doing? Am I open to His work in my life? Because Pentecost wasn't the finish line. It was the beginning of something that's still happening. And if we're listening, we're invited to be part of that story. Thanks for watching Magnified. If you found our content helpful, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We really appreciate your support.